July 10th, 2023 meeting of the Halifax County School Board to order. And everybody check their microphones, please. We will hear each opinion, but ultimately act as one. We will speak candidly and courteously to each other and listen to dissenting or different viewpoints with an open mind. We will help each other to depersonalize disagreements. Once we reach a decision or compromise as a board, we will each support the will of the board in word and in deed. At this time, I'd like to observe a moment of silence, please. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He didn't tell me he wasn't. I guess maybe he's just running a few minutes late.
Okay.
I guess he's running late because he's...
Walter Potts has informed me that he will not be able to attend tonight's meeting due to a medical condition, and he will be participating electronically through his or her phone from his or his home. This will be entered into the minutes of the meeting. According to School Board Policy BDD, electronic participation in meetings from remote locations, a school board member may participate in a meeting by electronic means when a quorum of the school board is physically assembled at the meeting location and arrangements have been made for the voice of the remote participant to be heard by all persons at the meeting location. These requirements have been met. The board must approve the electronic participation by a majority vote of the members who are physically assembled. I need a motion in a second.
I move that we allow Mr. Potts to participate electronically.
Got a motion, do I hear a second?
I second.
Second, okay, by Ms. Shotwell, okay. All in favor of Mr. Potts participating electronically, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. The motion is carried. At this time, I'd like to ask for any amendments to the agenda.
I would like to move item 1 under unfinished business. I would like to table that to the August meeting if possible to give us time to better review that. That was fairly extensive. So we have the opportunity to look that over a little bit more.
Okay, motion to table until the August meeting, the VSBA updates. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Do I hear a second? Okay. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion is carried. We will do that one next month. Melissa?
I'd like to add an item under new business, the 23-24 calendar, just a quick point of review for that.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, 23. Got a motion and a second to discuss the 23-24 calendar. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion is carried. We'll put that in as under new business as item 5. Okay, is there any other amendments or changes to the agenda for this evening?
Mr. Chair, I did have one question or one thought. I'm not sure what Ms. Hicks is thinking, but if Ms. Miller is needed for her discussion, would it be easier to put that under 3 and bump the other 2 down? I'm not sure if that,
Yeah, either 2 or 3, it would be quick. I'm not asking for a motion, I just wanted to point something out on that calendar, so it would make sense to put it back to back with the
Okay.
calendar discussion.
All right, well, let's just put it right there with the 24, 25, put 23, 24 calendar right there with
okay,
Ms. Miller.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I move we approve the amended agenda, removing the VSBA updates and adding the 23-24 calendar.
Do I hear a second?
A second. Whoops,
All
I'm
in
sorry.
favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Okay, the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion that be approved.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Shotwell. Any discussion?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
The financial, or the payment of the bills is different. I'm assuming that's because it's the end of the year and there's not a financial report with it? Is that right?
That's right.
Dr. Bucklew, you want to speak to that? Please, ma'am.
Yes, so these are the final roll-through bills. Some will be payable as July, so our finance reports will pick back up for the August meeting. So you'll have the ending of the fiscal year for last school year and the beginning of for this school year.
And the high school financial report, will that be later tonight? Because that's usually included in there.
It's in there. It came in today, so I added it after the print, I believe, but it is in there.
It's on the back. It's on the back of, it's in orange. Flip that over.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion is carried. Citizens' comments? Is there anyone who would like to speak this evening?
Okay, can he see through the computer? Okay, Mr. Potts is now on speakerphone here.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Mr. Potts?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you are right up here, next to the gavel.
All right.
Thank you.
Citizens' comments. Anyone wanting to speak tonight? If not, let us move down to the superintendent's comments.
All
Dr.
right.
Husky.
Yes, indeed. First of all, I'd like to recognize some new administrators we have with us this evening. First of all, Mr. Jerry Elliott, would you please stand and kind of say hi to everyone? This is our new Director of Transportation. Some of you all recognize him, but just want to recognize him and say welcome. This is his first meeting joining us. He just started with us in his new role, and we are excited to have you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Jeff Garber is here. He's not a new face to us, but he's new in his official role as our Director of Maintenance. So welcome. We're excited to have you in your new role. So just a couple new faces that we have with us tonight. So once again, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying a little bit of this summer. Feel like we're finally getting some summer mixed in with all this rain. But it's actually a very, very busy time. Everybody seems to think, oh, everyone's, when the kids are out, we think everyone's closed for the summer, but that's not true at all. We are so busy around the school division in the summertime. We have summer success program going on. We have our EGP camp. We have sports conditioning. We have our Gear Up kids taking college visits and all kinds of things going on. Our culinary students just won all kinds of awards for us this past week. They were in Denver in a national competition. Our Chef Worley, she was recognized as National Advisor. The chapter itself was noted for its Community Service Award, which we are as proud of that as we are anything else. They also were awarded for having a chapter that has fiscal fitness, which we could all learn from the kids a little bit, I think. It's incredible. We've received some other good news just this past week is our CTE programs were awarded a $125,000 grant. Ms. Saunders is always, she's just like me. She's always looking for money, looking for grants. If it's a nickel out there, we're going to look for it. But we got $125,000 to update our automotive, building trades, and electrical programming. So we are super excited about that. And some of those items will be able to be transferred over into the new building. So anything we can do and move it forward and keep our kids updated and get them certified to get jobs and hopefully stay in our community. We are going to keep moving forward in that. Also today, we found out from the Virginia High School League that our spring sports teams were recognized as one of the school divisions in the state that received the Sportsmanship Award. And we want our athletes, we want our teams to do well, but more than anything, we want them to be good sports. So congratulations to all of our spring sports teams for their good sportsmanship. So that means that no player, no coach, or any of our teams were warned or reprimanded in any way. So that speaks volumes with the negative press that players, coaches, and teams get out there. So let's kind of keep that momentum going into the fall sports. I think that's a really good thing. On June 29th, we had a fantastic groundbreaking for the high school. It was well attended, and that's a big deal. The best part of that is when we had all of those future Comets show up, and we got to shovel some dirt with children who will actually be part of that new school. That, I don't know about you guys, but that just really made my day when we were there and the kids were there, because that's what it's all about. That's why we do this. We do all of this for them, and so that was super important. So later on this week is our administrative retreat. We are being hosted by the folks at VIR. So I'm keeping a couple of those things a little close because I don't want to let these folks know what's in store for them. But I always say, well, they always know now. If I say, come on, y'all, it'll be fun. But we are focused on some school safety. There is a veterans group out there that really does a lot of great work in training and helping folks with some drills. And so they're going to put us through the paces out there. But we are going to do some team building and some things with that. But our focus really is going to be on school safety. So I'll have more to tell you about that after we're done. So we're really getting focused on reopening school. Feels like we just closed school, but we are getting ready to reopen school. So I think that's about it for now. But we're super excited and looking forward to another great school year. So thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Huskin.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say thank you, everybody that came out. Thank you for everybody that's on Facebook, and just want to thank you all for participating in these meetings. We're, about being transparent, so I hope everybody's having a good summer. Y'all get plenty of rest and drink plenty of fluids and eat well, and we'll see y'all again next month. It's rolling around quick, but please, y'all get some good rest. You deserve it. You deserve it. All of you do. Mm-hmm. And Roy Keith, did you want to say something?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make an announcement. I'm sure many people have probably been following along and they've already heard, but about 25 minutes ago, former Comet, former Hokie, 2020 graduate of Halifax County High School, Christian Worley, right-handed pitcher, was just drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in the 9th round.
Wow.
So I thought that was
fantastic.
Really exciting for all Halifax County.
Thank you, Roy Keith. Now, I got a plaque and I got a certificate, and the young man is not here. So.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yeah, oh, absolutely,
Mr. Betts,
he is.
you're not
We're
sitting
gonna
up here in
celebrate
front.
Him. Oh, we want to celebrate him.
Yes, indeed. I looked at the, I was looking in the newspaper at the Class Day Awards, and Mr. Betts, I mean, you were in there about 10 times. I couldn't believe it. Well, I couldn't believe it too, because you got a lot of enthusiasm, enjoyed having you. I know I have. You're a fine young man, and we wish you all the best in the world. And I know you're gonna set the world on fire. Could you just turn around there and share a little bit what your plan is?
Okay, so I plan to go to Longwood University, major in biology and criminology, and pre-med, concentration, and then later on, after that, I'll be going to med school. Don't know that extra plan yet, but hopefully Duke University,
Yes.
med school, and become a sports medicine physician and help the community as well. So I've been in sports and stuff as well, so I already know the lingo and everything, so I just want to be back into that.
Fantastic.
Token of our appreciation and the work and the effort that you put into helping us this year. I know it's hard, it's a sacrifice and it takes time, and we sure do appreciate it. And thank you. Keep in touch. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And he's running track, and I think if I read this correctly, he's the first Halifax Comet to run D1 track, which is huge, considering
We don't have a track.
we don't have a track yet. Good job.
Thank you, thank you. Proud of you. Fantastic.
Yes, indeed. Good job.
Now, you put that plaque on your desk when you get to college, and you know, as they stop by, oh, right away, step into my office. That's what you tell them.
There you go. Thank you. Mr. Maresca, high school construction project update.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Dr. Huskin, members of the board, thank you for having me back here again this evening. Maybe a little shorter of an update because I have nothing for you to vote on this month, but I do have some, just at least a broad update of what's been going on the site and where we're at. Right now, I'm sure you've been seeing there's a lot of dirt being pushed around, going through what the cut and fill is. We're finishing up mucking out that pond back there. At the same time, we're also getting ready to start drilling for our pier foundation system. Actually, because of the great weather that Dr. Huskin mentioned, we've been able to accelerate that a little bit. We bumped it up an entire week, so starting next week, you'll see a drilling rig on site getting ready to drill about 5,044 bores that are 4 inches and 4 inches on a triangular pattern on center, about 35 feet deep. We drill those into the ground and then put some aggregate in it. It helps collect all the moisture out of the soils so we don't have to do any other mitigation, and then we come back and do the piers in there. So you'll see that drilling rig on site starting next week. Permitting, we had a page turn with the local JHA, Mr. Otis, about 2 weeks ago. His main comment was that we needed to, for egress purposes, it's fine like it is, but he would feel more comfortable if we widened the grand staircase by about 1 foot on each side. So we're just letting the structural engineers work that little aspect out. It's not going to increase our cost or anything like that. We'll make it work within the budget that you've given us and approved. Long lead items, Shockey has that out on the street right now for pricing. We should get the pricing back hopefully early next week. So that gives us time to vet those numbers and present that to you next month. Also, hopefully the architect is printing out the final set of drawings right now. I spoke to them a little bit ago. Those will be put on the street next week, and a month from then, hopefully we'll have pricing and vetted back for you. So by next meeting, fingers crossed, we should have all the numbers in place to know what the entire, not just the building, but we know what your program is going to cost. It's $129. We're not going past that ever. But we'll actually be able to identify what your building is going to cost you, as opposed to all your soft costs, site costs, and things like that. Let's see, as I said, there's currently mucking out the pond and grubbing. We have a meeting tomorrow. I know it's been an issue within the county, and parents are obviously justifiably concerned about what the bus traffic plan is going to look like for this new school year. So tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we have a meeting with a meeting of the minds on site with our new transportation officer. We actually have support from South Boston Police Department will be there also, so we can go over this and figure out exactly what the best course of action is going to be. This will just be for the probably 23-24 school year. Construction site's a dynamic, ever-changing animal, so we'll have to do this again as we sort of move the site, as the site grows and moves around. We also have a trade meeting tomorrow to discuss the site lighting plan, and we are meeting with Columbia Gas on Thursday. One of your board members has gone back and taken the initiative to help us out here in this aspect, to try and get that cost down. The cost came in higher than we would like, so what we're trying to do is get the load from the building, not just the middle school, but also from the transportation, or not transportation, the maintenance warehouse. If we can get those numbers to them, show them it's much more feasible than they think. We're not just providing it to just the high school, so we're trying to get that number down. And I did confirm with the trade partners, with Shockey, architect, engineer, and the engineers, that this time that we're taking to discuss is not gonna hurt us at all ordering these long lead items, because almost all of them are multi-fuel. You just plug up and pour it into a different port on there, or they sell off-the-shelf vaporizers that you can get at Home Depot and things like that. So it's not a huge issue whatsoever to actually take this extra time and have these conversations with Columbia Gas. And coming up, we're looking to have meetings with all the school folks, and we just need to finalize and refine the IT, the security, including the door locks, and the FF&E and your CTE equipment. And look to have those hopefully finalized by our next meeting as well. The goal is next meeting to have you guys, you all, your firm numbers.
Very good. Any questions,
I
guys?
do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Lloyd?
I know you commented on the transportation piece. I was just going to ask or follow up, do you have a time frame in mind as far as when we would be able to let the community know, or the parents know, that this may be the traffic pattern?
Yes, sir. So after we have this meeting tomorrow, the civil engineer needs to take the idea, the rough sketch that we're thinking about doing, that we agree to tomorrow morning. He needs to actually put that on a drawing plan and submit that to the town of South Boston. And since we're having representation from the town of South Boston Police Department, and Mr. Crowder said he would be there also, it should be a quick and easy yes and get going. So probably by early next week, as soon as the town gets that in their hands, looks at it, signs off on it, we can push that out to the community.
And does this include student parking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So bus drop-off, student
Bus
parking?
drop-off, student parking, as well as ADA parking, your handicap parking. We need to make
Okay.
sure we keep enough spaces for that as well.
And I'm sure you thought about this as well, but I'm thinking, like, I know we've always used that road in the mornings as drop-off, or in afternoons, I guess, it's when you circle through there, through the middle school.
Yes, sir. We're thinking about there would be actually two different avenues of approach, those for riding the bus and those for POV, driving their own cars.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Great update, thank you. The only thing I think you didn't mention was the outside site plan around the school with the parking lot, the final plan. Is that something that we will see next month as well?
Oh, we should definitely have that for you next month as well. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
This transportation piece is just the last little bit that we need to confirm with the local community and the school to make sure that they're okay with it before we put a plan out to everybody and tell them what they're gonna do rather than pull information out of them.
Okay, so, and let me make sure I stated that clearly. So I'm talking about the 2025, when we move into the new school building, what the exterior of the building's gonna look like, the parking lot areas, and all of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
We'll definitely have that for you. I understand. I understand the question. My anticipation is to have those numbers for you all next meeting, and at that time I'll also have Howard Shockey and Sons, a representative from them, someone from Grimm Park here as well, and then we'll have I'll have it broken out so we can compare and contrast the numbers where we start at and where the phases that we've gone through.
Very good. Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Maresca.
Thank you all.
Appreciate all your work. Thank you. Salary scales, Dr. Buckler.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. In your packets, you should have a copy of the requested pay tables that we would like your consideration to approve. This is based on the 5% increase across the board. We streamlined it a little bit from how it was, so it's a little easier to read in some areas, but it is the same format that was used last year, outside of one area for streamlining in teachers. If you recall, the teacher scale went across an entire page, so we've streamlined that one for ease of use. And at this time, I would just like to know if you have any questions.
Mr. Camp?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
The hourly employees, like the bus drivers, was that hourly rates also increased by 5%?
Yes. And you will notice as well the substitute list, we increased that for that group as well. So we didn't leave anybody out.
I guess I'll give my opinion on this. I'm still supporting the step plus the 5%. I think we did not provide notice to employees. It was a miscommunication on the board side with administration, so I'll take some responsibility on that as well. Live and learn, but, we just did these salary scales last year. 5% is good, but without the clear communication, I would still ask for the step plus the 5%. I can make that a motion. So the
Motion.
motion is for the 23-24 pay scale to be the step plus the 5%.
Second by Mr. McDowell. Got a motion and a second.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, instead of the plain 5%, where it took last year's salary, increased at 5%, and that's the new next year. My motion is that we keep the steps so they get their step plus the 5%. So if they're at year 2, they're moving to year 3, they would get the year 3 plus 5%, not the year 2 plus 5%.
Response. Okay, yes, sir.
Mr. Camp, I just have a question.
Ms.
Did
Riley.
Mr. Potts have a question?
He's fine, he heard what the motion was, he's good.
Dr. Buckaloo, can you tell me what the step plus 5% will do as far as the health insurance that we offer our employees? Is that going to hurt that any?
So that, the hold harmless cannot be undone. That portion would have to remain into effect.
All right, but next year, is this going to affect health
It-
insurance next year?
It likely will if we continue down the path of steps plus whatever the General Assembly increase is, yes.
So we could possibly do the step plus the 5%. Next year, the health insurance is in question.
Yes.
So what are we really giving our employees, is what I'm thinking. As a past teacher, it's great to get an increase in salary. I'm absolutely all for that for everyone. But if you're going to turn around and give somebody something and then turn around and take it away, what are you doing? And I think our employees need to know that. They need to
Right.
think about that as well. I personally am not in favor of taking away anybody's health insurance. I think that's a bad decision. Or
And-
having them be responsible for it.
Right.
That's a bad decision.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is there any possibilities that we have to lay off anyone or freeze positions or?
We are in a little bit of a frozen everything right now until we get an actual budget from the General Assembly. You all could vote for any number tonight, and we are on the skinny budget until we know different from the General Assembly, until they give us anything different. So whatever the number is, we are all in a holding pattern, and the whole state, we're being held hostage by the state, period. So at this point, we are not having to lay off anyone. We are just, every position that comes open, we are having to really examine, do we replace? We're not just automatically replacing, which is good business anyway, which we were already doing an efficiency study anyway. But we are not in a reduction in force position right now. So, but again, if the state comes back at 7%, then if they adopt that version of the budget, then we might be in that predicament. But this whole pattern of not knowing has got us and all our colleagues around the state in a very sense of uneasiness, and that's just the reality. We just don't know. I wish they would go back to work. I wish they would come together and make a decision, but I can't make a decision based on that, nor can we can't make sound financial decisions not knowing. So we're trying to be conservative here. That's what we're trying to do, is be conservative. But we understand, we want to do the best by our employees as well.
Well,
But we're not talking about doing away with the insurance. We're just talking about paying the difference that it went up, like $6 or $7, if I'm not mistaken. So we're not talking about doing away with the
We can't.
employees' insurance.
No.
We're just talking about paying for the difference.
The premium,
$7
Yeah.
premium.
the increase in the premium. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Melissa?
I had two questions about the ESSER funding. When does the ESSER funding end as far as paying the teachers? I know we had some extras. And how many positions about would you know are covered by ESSER funds?
Well, there's two different ESSERs. One is ending in September of this year, so we've worked on moving those individuals if there was anyone remaining. Then ESSER 3 is the following September. And as far as a number on how many employees, we have 14. Thank you, Ms. Eakes.
So at the end of the school year, we'll have to come up with, if nothing changes, 13 more salary positions.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Evans? Did
Yeah. I think that, it'd be nice if we can give everyone 5% plus a step, because I feel like that's something that I feel like I promised them back over a year and a half ago. But the thing that concerns me is that I'm just trying to figure out where all this money gonna come from next year. That's a lot of money. Just like we're in a pickle right now, it might be even in a worse pickle next year. And I'm afraid that we're gonna have to really make some tough decisions come next year, dealing with positions and a whole lot of more stuff. If we had a better picture of where the money's gonna come from, that's a different story. But right now, I think, just like Dr. Huston said, that the budget is still unclear. And it depends on whether it's gonna be a 7% or whatsoever. That's gonna cost a lot more money. And we really gonna be on a big pickle. But I do know that we did make a promise, at least I made a promise, about the cost of living in a step, which they deserve. But do y'all feel like that we really can afford this at this time?
There will be other areas that we need to look at in material supplies, contracted services. We would need to get slimmer in some areas, which we are looking at anyway to do. I don't have a finite answer on all of the things. But I can continue to work and let you know where we stand if we implement that.
It's so contingent on what the
It's all
state-
contingent.
It's so,
And the where we stand, I would have to backtrack and use that skinny budget, which is substantially less than the budget that we had originally had approved.
and the other bait and switch in all of that is that in the skinny budget, the grocery tax money, which they told us they were going to replace even in the skinny budget, they
It's
did
reduced.
not.
Yeah.
So that's a hit even in the skinny budget. So,
I would just like to say that Dr. Bucklew did a fine job in your report from the June 21st meeting. I read that and I saw where you had $500,000 worth of savings in there just from things that you
That's
could
right.
squeeze out of the budget right now. So my thinking is that the remainder, you know, I'm sure you have your other sources that you and Dr. Huskin are going to look at, but then too, you know, there's that $3 million from the savings that we've had from COVID. So I feel pretty confident with a yes vote as far as the step and the 5%. I feel pretty confident that the money will be there. So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Potts.
I heard Ms. Frazier said that, Ms. Frazier, clarify this for me. You're saying that the possibility of taking the insurance away or part of the insurance away is for next year or this year?
Not this year. It would be a possibility maybe next year. Not, this year's already written in stone, but
That's already been passed. What about next, is that next year, then that's 23, 24?
We're not gonna take any health insurance away, Mr. Potts. It's just gonna be, you know, it's just like Mr. McDowell said, it's just, you know, the employee will be responsible for any employee share of the increase, which this year I think was like $7, $8 per person. So that's what that discussion was about. But no, you know, they will always have their health insurance, okay?
Yeah, but you said, so you said they did pay $6 or $7
no,
this
we
year?
paid it. No, we paid it.
We paid it. The school board paid it.
Oh, so they're gonna have to pay that next year then?
Maybe. We don't know
Maybe-
yet. We don't
maybe.
have the numbers yet.
We don't know yet. We'll have to get those numbers together, okay?
Well, even if the state gives us any money, they don't ever give us 100%, so it's got to be some money coming from somewhere.
Bromance.
Right. That's gonna be, you know, it'll come from the employees, you know, just, you know, hopefully that will be very minimal as has been the case here in the last 2 or 3 years,
Definitely. Okay.
okay?
So, and as Freddie was saying too, we talked about that's what's gonna happen next year, then the year after that, this is gonna be even worse because we still don't have that money that was replaced, or that wasn't replaced by the state. And we still are having problems trying to deal with that. Are we going to be able to find that kind of money for the upcoming budgets?
Well, my point, this is just me talking, Mr. Potts. You know, we've got as Mr. Evans said, you know, we did make a promise to the employees, and we do need to make good on that. We've got $500,000, which Dr. Bucklew and Dr. Huskin have found in our budget, okay? And you know, with the remainder, you know, that money that was spent or was saved during COVID, you know, that can cover for right now, you know, for
2 years.
for about 2 years. So after that, you know, some adjustments will have to be made probably.
Well, maybe I'm missing something here because we were just asking the board of supervisors to give us
asked it for money, we asked to move our own money. It was an adjustment.
Yeah, Mr. Potts, that 700,000 from the email was moving it from one category to another. It wasn't additional funds or missing money. It was over in one area and under in another.
Do you hear Ms. Shotwell, Ms. Potts?
No, I can't.
Yeah, okay. Hold on. Here she is.
Hey, Mr. Potts, the 700,000 from the email was not additional money or missing money. It was extra money in one bucket and not enough in one of the others. So it was just moving from one department to the other. There wasn't any missing money.
I didn't say it was missing, I said it was short. That's why we went and got those $700 and changed from one department to another. Now you tell me we changed that, then they found $500 more, right?
No, sir.
No?
No, this is Jay again. The 700,000 was just, it was just a moving from one line item to the next. It was not any extra money. No, sir.
Okay, but now you tell me that they found 500, when they found, I heard $500,000 was found, what was that found from there?
We found ways that we could save that money this year by like not filling positions or cutting back on things that we were planning to order, like money, forecasted money that hasn't been spent yet. Money, just budgeted money that line items in the budget that where we planned that we could potentially save money. Money that we thought we were, budgeted to spend that we maybe don't need to spend. So if y'all want to give the additional raises, that we got to look for ways that we could potentially save money in order to move it into payroll and potentially save the money. That's where that's the 500,000 that we're talking about right now.
You talking about step raises or?
Yes.
Step raises?
Yes, the money to pay for the step raise. If y'all vote to give the step raises, we got to find the money to do that. We can't just say, oh, let's do it and not have the actual cash to cover it.
I understand that, but, so that's this year or that's the next year?
That's for right now year. That's for the money starting, the contracts that's starting right now.
And that's in 2024, right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Camp, I'm sorry. Ask a question.
You good? You good, Ms. Potts?
No, I'm not, I understand it.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Camp?
Mr. Camp.
Just one second. Ms. Lloyd.
Yeah, I'm listening to Ms. Shotwell's motion, and I'm listening to all the conversation, and I'm all for rewarding employees, but I'm thinking back over the last couple of years, and then also projecting out. When we did the salary scale revision, that was approximately 5%, if I remember correctly, that we did. And when we started that project, it was solely going to be aimed at teachers. We expanded it right there at a moment's notice in that November meeting and ended up adding all employees. So, that was approximately 5%. We're looking at a minimum of 5% this year, it sounds like, and then a minimum of 5% projected for next year. Is that correct?
We haven't heard a number for next
I
year.
thought it was a certain
A step is an
obligation.
additional 2%.
No, I mean the obligation. I was under the understanding that also maybe another 5%.
It was, last year was
mandated
5,
next year.
and we have the biennial, a new budget will come out next year,
Okay.
so we don't know what the projection will be.
Okay, so
We're on this is the second year of that
Second year,
two-year budget,
okay.
so it was definitely 5 last year, definitely 5 this year. We don't know what next year's numbers
Okay.
will be.
So that was the 2 years. This year was
Yeah.
the second year. Okay. So we're looking at, approximately 10% there, plus we had the salary scale revision.
Some people
that we
got
made.
more, some people got more than 5 because we adjusted the scales to bring them to a living wage.
And then additionally, we took on, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have those figures in front of me, approximately 700,000 when we took on those insurance
That's right.
costs,
That's
not passing them on to employees. That was approximately 700,000, if memory
That's right.
serves. So I guess my point is, we're climbing, 5% plus 5% plus 5% plus 700,000 that we took on in insurance. Again, I understand that the want or the desire to reward employees, but at some time we also have to be responsible and have to be able to handle our budget and present a budget to the Board of Supervisors that's going to be accepted and approved and dare I say, welcomed. But, so I guess that's my concern. I hear Ms. Shotwell's desire, and I certainly appreciate that, but I don't know at what point we say, okay, well, this is as far as we can go for the time being and work on the budget that we have. And, you know, again, if we find ways through reductions in the future, then, you know, maybe we can do more. But I know Mr. Edmonds also made a comment about worrying about how do we continue to fund this, and I'm right there with Mr. Edmonds here. How do we continue to fund all these increases? So, you know, I guess that's my internal debate right now. It's just where do we draw the line at some point? I mean, we have to eventually stop and go with the salary scale as we have it, or, you know, the other mandates as they're presented to us, and not do additional.
Anybody else?
He said not give additional, is that what he said?
What was that again, Mr. Potts?
He said not give additional, that's the 2% he's talking about?
I was saying at one point, do we only go with the salary scale as we have it, or, you know, and don't do additional increases? Does that make sense, Mr. Potts?
Additional increase in how much, 2%, or what percent you talking about?
I'm saying, you know, we stick with what we're obligated towards and not do more at this point.
So you talking about the step, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Ms. Hicks?
Yeah, I had a couple questions about our budget just in general to see if things have been in there. And it leads back to when we were talking about the three big things that we wanted to try to fix in the school system, which was teacher salaries and the high school and elementary school discussion. We still don't have any money in capital improvement as far as I know, right, to fix, I'm not talking about gymnasiums at Meadville and Sinai,
Right.
but just general maintenance in any of our, like the capital improvement plan that we passed, but we don't have a budget for that.
So there are a few pieces within the maintenance and operation budget that we have been, it's more preventative maintenance, which goes in with your capital improvement. Any new builds, we don't have budgeted, and it wasn't in the budget that I adopted when I walked in. So no is the answer for that. And we had the one-time $2,166,000 for school construction that we're carrying over $2 million of that.
And is that $2 million going for the high school?
That will have to be a board approval.
Okay.
That was our first discussions, that we would do that as part of the school board's obligation of the $4 million.
Okay, that's what I thought, thanks. The GPS for buses, is that part of this budget?
So the GPS for the buses, I believe, went under the security grant for some of that. No,
It's ESSER.
ESSER, I apologize. It was under ESSER.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the security for all the other schools besides the high school, the middle school, and Sinai. So the rest of the elementary schools, will they have security at the beginning of the fall?
Security as in personnel?
Yeah. Will they have somebody at the door with our security company?
I forget, we did some
We
upgrade to our.
added,
Yeah, we added two, thank you. I couldn't remember what the upgrade was, but we added two more to our additional, for our contract from last year, we built in two more.
Okay. Is that
it's under ESSER.
so that's a budget issue? Because I thought we were gonna have them at all the schools.
No, it was a phase in, it was over time, it wasn't a start with, start and then the very next year. It takes time to build that, that's very expensive to do it in 1 year.
Okay.
So we just started with them in January,
Yeah.
so that takes a
Okay.
little bit more time.
Thank you. I'm
Sure.
just trying to see a big picture, and we have a lot of needs, and from what it sounds like, we don't know where all those are coming from, so I'd like to have a balanced view
Sure.
of all this. Thank you.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Potts.
I hear her say that she's not sure where this money gonna come from. Is that what
No, no, no.
I was just saying, Mr. Potts, that we have things that we hope to do in the future, and we haven't built that all into the budget yet.
Did you hear?
Hi, Mr. Potts, did you hear me?
No, man, yeah, I hear you now, thanks.
Okay, yeah. I was just saying, I was aware of things that we've talked about previously that, like, for instance, the school security, which are ongoing costs that we still need to get into our budget in future years. So I just wanted an update on where we were.
Which means we don't know where that money coming from, right?
That's right. The GPS for the buses is done, but we still need security for all the schools, the $4 million commitment for the high school, and then ideally, in my view, some capital improvement funding for all the schools.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Plus, we still talk about what Freddie brought up about, we got all these things we're talking about, which is gonna happen. Then we talk about where we're gonna get this other money from to take care of these salary raises, then we don't know where the money gonna come from, right?
Can we vote?
Am I right up? I'm interpreting it wrong.
Say yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none?
I just have one question. I'm sorry,
Yes,
Mr. Camp.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Bucklew, if we vote on the step plus 5%, we're voting on this for next year, correct?
I
This
believe
year.
this is a current year vote.
Current year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we have the money to do this right now.
With the assistance from what the carryover fund in the county, we would be able to for, we believe, 2 years. But I need to make sure where we are each year to make sure that it's going to cover. But with the carryover funds, we can do it. That's, go ahead.
And Mr. McDowell, this is going to cost our employees, as far as health insurance, how much extra money for this year?
Nothing this year.
Nothing this year.
Nothing this year.
And what about next year?
We don't know.
So
We
each
don't
year, we have to wait until the premium percent increase comes in, and each year, we don't know until the TLC comes in with their number. So that'll be later down the road, we'll have an idea of that.
It could be lower. We have one lower before we just don't,
Yeah,
for next year.
so each year is different.
Roll call.
Thank you.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
So if we was to pass this tonight, we would go back and give everyone a step increase?
Yes, so we would go back and redraft the contracts and issue those to match what the will of the board is. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. So this year, we would give them a total of 5% plus a 2% step, plus we'd take care of the health insurance.
That's correct, if the vote is yes.
And then if the General Assembly comes back with 7%, we would have to then go 7% plus the step, right? I mean, I just want clarity.
And there's a scenario that could occur, so that's why
Or would we be covered? So should the
So-
motion be for a total of 7%?
you make, that
Do
is,
you all want to go beyond 7, or do you want to do 7 and a step? So you've got to be real careful
Yes.
about,
Because that'd be a total of 9%. That'd be
For-
9%.
and some people
Just gotta-
more, depending on where they are
Yeah.
in that table.
So if the state come back and say 7, we give them 7 plus a step,
If that
that's
is,
9.
that's 9%. Plus the health insurance.
which is already, yes.
Because if whatever your raise is, if you're going to always say, and a step, we will then be hard pressed to find that. Which is, we'll figure it out, but I just want you all to be real clear in your motion so that we know our
Right.
direction after your motion. Because there's no guarantee that that number's going to be 5. So we'll do it, but we just need to be clear in the direction you want us to take.
Mr. Camp?
And
Mr.
correct me if
Camp.
I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, that if
That's correct.
A third.
Yes.
But then we gotta come up with the other money for that, plus doing this other money.
Right.
So
Mr. Camp?
All right. Ms. Shotwell.
if they do come up with the 7%, we can come back to the table and determine if the 7% is already covered with what we give them or not. I think that's a future discussion that we need to have, but with the way the state budget is, I doubt they're gonna increase that. That would be my own personal opinion. Last question.
We don't know.
Whether, how did we end the year for this past year, budget-wise? Are we under budget, and by how much?
We won't know until the audit.
So the auditor has to do the final of that. We're closing the closing is more than just the closing meeting. So we are still going through the processes. We have not finalized all accounts.
What's your estimate?
It's really hard for me to say.
So we've been under budget for the last however many years in a row, 4
Okay.
or 5 or so. We were at 80% expended in May, which means there's about $15 million that we hadn't spent as of May. So,
No.
No.
No,
only
if it's anywhere,
$770,000 last
it's not my best, I don't even like to use the word guess, but best analysis at this point would be under $1 million. So there's.
There's nowhere close to, we wish it
No,
was 15.
no,
If it's
I was-
15 million, then we haven't put together a good budget.
Yeah, so, but we are going through that this week. The whole team has been working frivolously to make sure we're shoring up each of the categorical accounts, and once we do that, then we'll have a better idea.
Has the Board of Supervisors approved the release of all those extra carryover funded or salaries?
So we have to make a formal request, which would mean we would need to draft a letter for the board to sign to request that. So it has not been done. We would have to do that, and it would have to be defined for salaries based on the conversation.
And it's really has to hinge on what you all decide first, and then we get a dollar amount.
That's right.
It really has to hinge on what you all decide, because we have to know the dollar amount that we need.
Yep. Yes.
I don't look for the 7%, so you might as well drop that, but I ain't never seen it go up, so, I'm gonna say we're gonna get to 5%, that's gonna be it. That's my opinion.
They're just all vying for votes in Richmond, so it's got all the superintendents very nervous and worrying that they might, because they're all trying to vie for votes, and they've redistricted, and they're all doing that's why they haven't gone back to the table yet, because that's, if they do, then we're all going, what are we gonna do?
100%. Please. Ms. Shotwell, would you restate your
So I'm
motion?
going to restate the motion and clarify. For the 23-24 school year that has just started, 5% added to the existing or last year's salary scales, and the employee gets their step. So it would end up being their step plus the 5%.
For this year,
For this year going forward, it would adjust the salary scales. Last year's salary scales, adjust them all by 5%, and then wherever the employee is on the salary scale, that's their year.
Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
District 1, Ms. Brayley?
Well, I'm sorry at this time. I'm going to have to vote no because of what I've said earlier. It's a lot of question marks, so my vote at this time is no.
District 2, Mr. Boyd?
No.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks? No. District 4, Mr. Camp?
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Evans?
I just can't see a risk paying out 9% this year. Plus health insurance. That's a lot. I'm gonna have to say no.
District 6, Ms. Shotwell? Yes. District 7, Ms. McDowell?
yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts?
Mr. Potts?
He said no.
He said no. Did you say no?
Correct?
No, he said no. Thank you.
Motion fails 3-5.
Thank you, Dr. Buckley.
So we still have these, we have no
The pay
salary
tables.
scales.
I'll make a motion that we accept the salary scales as presented by Dr. Buckley.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
That is without step 2 raise and everything else that goes along with that, we just voted down.
Yes, sir, that's as presented by Dr. Buckley.
Any discussion? Any other discussion? We get a roll call vote on that too, please.
District 1, Ms. Raymond.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks.
Yes.
District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
District 6, Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
District 7, Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts.
Yes?
Motion carries 8-0.
All right. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Because it passed.
Code of Conduct updates. Mr. Davis?
Mr. Chair, Dr. Huskin, school board members, good evening. Standing in place of Mr. Lewis, he cannot be with us this evening. However, he wanted me to share this code of conduct update as a follow-up from last month's meeting. And I'll read this, but if you can look in this section, what's underlined is what's being added to this part on page 14, bullet 1. It says, when deciding whether to recommend a long-term suspension of more than 10 days, or determine the specific length of any short-term suspension or long-term suspension recommendation, principals may consider any relevant, aggravating, or mitigating factors of which they are aware. Aggregating factors are factors that tend to increase the seriousness of a disciplinary infraction, including but not limited to discriminatory offenses based on race, sex, national origin, color, age, religion, or disability, or infractions against students with disabilities or a significant age gap. Mitigating factors are factors that tend to decrease the seriousness of the disciplinary infraction. Aggravating and mitigating factors are relevant when, in the judgment of responsible school officials, they have a bearing on the student's level of responsibility for the behaviors in question. When both aggravating and mitigating factors are present, principals should exercise their discretion in weighing and balancing them. And this is by way of Mr. Lewis to be considered to be added to the code of conduct with that addition.
I move we approve the adjustment.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
I have a question, of course.
Okay, Mr. Potts?
Is something new that's been presented by Mr. Lewis or Mr. Davis, whoever's talking, or does it sound like a person?
It's Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis.
Is this brand new?
No, sir.
It's not brand new?
I don't think so.
It's adding more description. Ms. Shotwell had a question last month as to what mitigating factors, or to add more description, and more clarification. And so Mr. Lewis went back and added more clarification to be, just so the policy was clearer. So the policy's just being brought back with more description and clarification. That's all. That's all. Uh-huh.
Get a roll call vote, please.
District 1, Ms. Rayland.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes.
District 3, Ms. Hicks.
Yes.
District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes?
District 5, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
District 6, Ms. Shaw. Yes. District 7, Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts.
Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Policy MB, participation with non-school athletic teams. Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Chairman Camp, Dr. Husband, Vice Chairman, Mr. Lloyd, and the rest of the board members. I want to bring to your attention as far as the participation with non-school athletic teams. This is considering as far as with the coaches. One of the things that we tried to do, and I met with AD Justin Saunders, is we wanted to try to prevent our coaches from having the ability to work with student athletes in the off seasons. And one of the things that we wanted to kind of bring to you all's attention was with the policy in place. This is kind of a policy that a group has worked together to come up with so that we could be able to not hinder a coach from working with a student athlete during the off seasons. Halifax, again, public schools athletic coaches may coach athletic teams not affiliated with Halifax County Public Schools or the Virginia High School League, so long as doing so does not interfere with the coach's responsibility. As long as a coach is working with a player during their all season of their sporting, then it will be okay. A coach may receive direct payments for the training or coaching service from teams in and out of the division, or may receive payments from a team or program so long as the coaching or training services are unrelated to Halifax County Public Schools. In other words, for example, if I was coaching and I had a player that I wanted to work with during the season for a couple of hours on Saturday, just tutoring, I could not receive payments from that player because I am working with that player during my season. But if I was not working with that, if we were not in season at the time, and that player wanted me to work with him or her for some type of training, I would be able to do that and receive payments. We wanted to just be clear so that it does not hinder our coaches. You know, one of the things that we're trying to do is to try to encourage our coaches to work extra, because we want to continue our programs into the state level. Like our softball team did this spring. They represented Halifax County on the state level, and we want to try to give all of our high school programs that opportunity by, not hindering the coaches from wanting to, work extra to a point that they might, if a family wants to give them payments for the session, and the student is actually working with that coach during the all season, then I wanted to just have you all look at that to just kind of help us out with that. To Mr. Lloyd, I know you know about coaching and what it takes on the all season. It takes a lot of preparation during the all seasons, and these coaches, we're trying to make it that they get paid for what they do. I mean, and that's one of the things that we want to try to do. There wouldn't be anything against if the team is working on the outside. For example, if I'm coaching baseball and I needed to actually help a person in basketball or whatever, then I would be able to do that and receive payments from this policy. And this policy is it's a policy that we have, and wanted to just take a look at that.
Mr. Lloyd.
Coach Davis, well, Mr. Davis, I certainly appreciate you bringing that to us tonight. I have 4 points, if you'll allow me, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
The first point I would say, when we implemented this policy, a lot of the board members who were here, they'll recall that it was a policy we put in as a solution to a significant issue that we had at the time. I'm sure everybody will remember how volatile that one school board meeting was when I won't go into what happened that meeting, but people will recall that meeting, how volatile it was, and the conversations that we had related to what we perceived as student athletes being evaluated unfairly, which is why we put the policy in. When we put this policy in, a little background, our attorney, he not only did he author the policy, he basically authored the policy for us. He went in and he did so based on the policy that we have related to what teachers were allowed to do on the outside about tutoring students. Could not receive direct payments from students that were in their classes. So we tried to make the coaches' policy mirror what we had in place for the teachers at that time. A real important distinction when we talk about the policy, a lot of times I think it gets misunderstood in the public. We're definitely not trying to hinder a coach from working with athletes. We're just saying if you are evaluating a person, if you're choosing them to be on a team, or if you're choosing them as far as if you're choosing their playing time, you cannot be receiving direct payment from them and then make those decisions, because that is inherently, it's just unfair. When you have a person who's paying you directly and then you're choosing whether they make a team or do not make a team versus a person who is not paying the coach. And then also, again, on the team, playing time. I have a person that I'm receiving direct payment from, and keep in mind, a lot of these baseball organizations, the cost is, it's about $3,200 a year is what you pay to be on one of these baseball teams. So, if you're paying $3,200 a year to that coach, well, obviously, and the other person's paying nothing. I mean, if a person has identical tryout, where are you going to look? Which way are you going to lean? And that's what we were running into. The last thing I'll say about the current policy, when we put this in play, we tried to emphasize, hey, we're not saying do not work with athletes. You can work with everybody else. You just can't work with anybody, and you can get paid for working with athletes. You just can't do it if you're going to be evaluating them or coaching them that year. Otherwise, work with every athlete in the county. I mean, volunteer your time, get paid for it, whatever you can do to make the programs better. We all want to see the Comets do well and the Lions do well. But we were saying just do not receive direct payment from people who you will be immediately responsible for. So, it's a policy that I probably wish we did not need. But at the same time, with the money now that's evolved in showcase level sports and travel ball, it's conflicts that are created because of the amount of money that's now associated with those sports. Again, I wish we were not there like it was 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. You show up and play Legion ball, you do your other things where it was not that amount of money. But unfortunately, that's just not where we are now. So I appreciate what Mr. Saunders is trying to do, and you too, Mr. Davis. But unfortunately, I think this policy is our attempt to protect and be fair to all athletes and give everybody a fair chance to be on the Comets, fair chance to be on the Lions, no matter where you were investing where other people were investing their money. Everyone had a fair shot at tryout day and a fair shot once they made the team. That was our attempt, and I think until we find something better, I think we have to continue trying to protect all of those who want to be Lions and want to be Comets. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, and Mr. Lloyd, point well received. But just thinking of coaches, and with coaches at the high school level, and especially thinking about, because we're always talking about the next level and trying to get our student athletes to the next level. What we do at the high school, we doing tryouts. It's a rubric that each team has to present, so that each player is kind of evaluated, fairly, so that everybody, and I just don't know if a coach will not put the best players out there on the field. I mean, that's what you have to do with tryouts.
Yes.
And I would agree with you, Coach Davis, but where we probably separate is, you're typically probably not talking about your players 1 through 9 if we're talking about baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably talking about players 15 through 18. If player 15 through 18 who's on, a borderline player, and this is where your money's going to become involved. Obviously, typically you've got your top 4 or 5, and they're going to be there no matter what. And unfortunately, I just don't think there's any way that you protect those people other than having this policy in place. I would agree with you. When it comes to who you're going to actually play, you're probably likely to play those players. But then you have players 10 through 18 still sitting there, who potentially one of them could have made the roster. And this is not, and unfortunately, it's not a hypothetical. I mean, this is what was happening. That's why we put the policy. I know Mr. Potts will recall he and I were sitting beside here that night during the situation, and Mr. Edmonds was here. Ms. Fraley, I know you were here when we had those conversations, and it was something you could see building. It wasn't a one-time thing. I mean, it was happening every year. I know Mr. Lewis, I had those conversations about, please meet with your coaches, encourage them to do the right thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And unfortunately, we had some significant issues that one year, and I won't call out the school, but it somewhat forced our hand as a board to probably move more quickly than we may have otherwise.
Yeah, I'm just,
Can I say something? I don't like the policy or the proposed policy. We have other schools, other VHSL schools that don't have a policy. They don't have anything regarding this. And I found that out since this right here. So, that's, I think when you're taking the money back from somebody, if they're being paid, that's why we have athletic directors and principals, superintendents, say, hey, wait a minute here, that guy doesn't have to make the decision. Okay. Now I understand there's probably be a power thing there too. Head coach, superintendent, AD, whatever. But we're putting people in these positions to be fair. Okay. And I just can't see not letting somebody be paid who. They're not making all the money in the world to begin with as a coach. They're probably a teacher, probably coaching, getting a stipend as a coach, and I just think that it's not about the money. It's about where you want to transfer the decision and the fairness.
Right.
Okay, to me. Right. Okay, so that's where I am right now.
I'm gonna agree and disagree. I know this happens every day. Coaches are not fair. I'm not saying all coaches, but some coaches are not fair. I've been through this. So, I agree and I disagree. So if that coach, he should not be able to evaluate that child if he's gonna play on that team. He should excuse himself from that. You should put that in that policy.
That's a good point.
He should not have anything to do with this child's evaluation. I've been through it. Been through it with granddaughters. I know how it works. And I'm sorry, and I hate to say it, but it's the truth. So I think that needs to go into policy. If that coach is evaluating that child and he is getting paid for services, then he should excuse himself from that. That's my opinion.
just want to be clear with that, Mr. McDowell, is excuse himself from what?
if he is evaluating this child to play ball for middle school, high school, whatever, he should excuse himself from making any decisions for this child if he's getting paid for the service.
I think that's what the existing policy does. That's what the existing policy does. It says they can't work with that student. So if they're going to receive money outside of school, they evaluate them every single game. So there's no way to say, hey, you can't evaluate them to make the team, but hey, then playing time for next week, they're still evaluating them. So I don't think that solves the problem. I don't see this policy as hindering coaches, and I'm not an athlete expert. Sports teams, I couldn't tell you what they all are even. But if you have a coach that is getting money in the evenings from students, they can still do that. It's just specific students, ones that they are coaching for the school team. This isn't hindering coaches and taking away their money. It's just saying you can't work with these specific students. I think we need to put the students first here. You have one kid that pays $3,000 a year plus the cost of $100 an hour for an individual coach, and then you have another student that can't afford his own cleats. How is that fair for him to go up against a kid that coach has been working with and has been teaching and training and has that intimate relationship with? I don't think that's fair for the students. I think it's a very slippery slope. I mean, just listening to you talk about it, we want our coaches to be able to receive money from our student athletes. That to me is a red flag. I don't think that should ever happen. If they're coaching a student, I agree with the current policy. They should not be receiving funds for coaching them outside of school.
I believe that the human side is that it's going to be expectation. I think that from a parent standpoint, if I was to pay a coach hundreds of dollars to train my child, the expectation is that my child gonna make your team when the time comes. That's the human side. That's the truth of it. If you've been working with my child for the past year or two, and my child ready to come up to the middle school, not just in football or basketball, but also being a cheerleader, being a soccer coach, a parent going to say, hey, you've been working with my child, and I spent so much money over the past couple of years for you to get my child ready, and then you're going to cut my child. That's just the human side of us. I had to agree with the rest of them. I think that the policy we have in place now, I'm fortunate I was a part of that panel that felt the same way like Keith Lloyd back a couple of years ago. We did have some issues, but if the truth be told, it's just the human side. You get to talking about money, that money is, I tell you, it make people do things they think they wouldn't do. And I think that, you know, if they want to do that, I think our coaches need to spend more time and try to put on more clinics during the summertime for all kids. Put on football clinics, baseball clinics, soccer clinics, all clinics. Put on clinics during the summertime if you want to really help the kids. Put on these clinics. I think that'd be a great idea if they truly want to help the kids here in Halifax County.
Sure.
But I hate to see us open up the door and tell coaches it's okay for you to, you know, get your few kids and you work with them and you can charge them wherever you want to charge them. And there's a great chance that your child gonna be on that middle school football, basketball, baseball team or high school team. It's a great chance because look how much money you invested, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. And that's a lot of money, especially when you're not gonna have a lot of oversight. Because I think that from your standpoint as a principal and other principals here in this county, I think y'all got a whole lot of work to do already. Than saying, you know, you need to watch this program and make sure they're doing us, make sure they're not doing us, and I think it's just gonna open up a whole different avenue. That's just my opinion.
Rookie.
Listening to Mr. Edmonds talk, there is one thing that I would like to say to you, Mr. Davis, that I would be all for, and whenever that time came, I would be willing to put a motion on that would support the coaches. Now, what I would like to see is the coaches instead is have off-season programs. You know, you take your football, you know, as they have a spring program where they're working with athletes, and, you know, if we need to increase the athletic budget to pay the coaches to be there and to, you know, work however many days a week that we need to in the evenings to offer school-affiliated programs, you know, I would be all for that. You know, if we need to pay the coaches more money, where students are not investing in it, but we're paying the coaches for hours put in. I mean, if they're working the hours, they should get paid for the hours. You know, or a fall program for your baseball. I know a lot of schools do that already that are way ahead of us, having fall baseball and spring football. So, you know, while I'm not in favor of amending this policy, I would be all for paying coaches to do their work that we're wanting them to do. You know, weight training programs for athletes. You know, if that's something after the hours that they need to do, I would be more than willing to pay them whatever is a fair rate to do those type programs, as opposed to changing this policy, which I think builds your overall athletic program more so than changing this one policy. So that's my final thought.
Melissa.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Lloyd a lot. Strength and conditioning in the summer, Saturday runs, you know, a lot of preseason, and paying coaches extra to invest in their teams. I like that. As a coach and an athlete, I like those ideas. I'm a little bit confused what you're trying to get rid of, actually. The first sentence says no coach can accept payment to coach athletes who will be on their team. So you're leaving that part in there?
Yes.
So they cannot coach an athlete and get payment at all
During their current
during
or following school year.
who may or will be on his or her team during the current. So let's say it's the summer. They still can't coach that person because they may be on the team during the following school year.
Well, they can still coach them,
But
but
they can't be paid
can't,
for it.
yes.
Okay. So can they, and then the second part you're suggesting to take out, what would that accomplish then?
Well, right here, this will accomplish, you know, if, let's say, for example, if a player was in an organization that required a fee, and that coach who's actually working at the high school level on one of the athletic teams, and if that coach is actually on that, then want to take out as far as outside athletic teams, which the coach is affiliated with. Further, no coach employed by Halifax County Public Schools may coach on that team not affiliated with that, consistent of students who may or will be on the team during the current or following year. So it's talking about the organization as a whole.
Like travel ball teams.
Yes.
So that at least allows like the coach, like if, like AAU basketball, like right now, our coaches can't coach an AAU basketball team. So this would at least allow the coach to, they may not receive direct payment from the student, but they could at least coach for the AAU organization that would have the kids on the team. That's what this update would do.
Well,
So they may accept payment
From the organization, right? Am I right on that?
No,
Am I
you're
right?
wrong, because the current policy, I mean, the revised policy, well, even the current policy allows coaches to coach AAU basketball and get paid for that. They just can't coach players that they're also coaching at the high school at the same time. They can't receive payment from people that are currently on their high school teams. So let's just say if Coach Davis was coaching high school varsity basketball, he could coach an AAU team full of middle school athletes and get them understanding his concepts, his systems, all the way through middle school. It's just when they came to
The high school.
Yeah, at the varsity level, he could no longer accept payment from that team or that player. He would have to stay ages younger than he's evaluating. That's what the current policy says.
Yeah, and if I may, you know, and that's one of the things that I was talking about as far as the players and like that example you gave right here, you know, we did, Justin, we did some research on it, and like, for example, all of these schools up north, Martinsville, no policy, Mecklenburg, no policy, GW, no policy. And in fact, they're hoping the basketball coach, you know, will do a travel team so that their players, once they come back to school, then that coach has been working with those players for so long. That's how you get the state level players. And the program will just blossom. I mean, Magna Vista, for example, no policy. They coach AAU but cannot use the uniforms of the school. So, you know, the coaches are still working with the players like year round. I mean, it's a, like Tunstall, no policy. Boys basketball and girls coaches currently coaches travel ball. And we won't allow our coaches to work with our players. Or they could work with them, but, you know, they can't be a part of an organization if it's an AAU team, and they can't, if the players have to pay, then what this says is that if they're in this organization, then they cannot participate, or I, as the coach, cannot participate with them during the summer, because our policy says that the players, if they're on or going to be on my team at high school, I can't be with them during the summer because they're in this organization that has a fee on that.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that first sentence still negates what you're saying, because no coach may accept payment services from athletes who, it's not saying just the organization, it's just saying may accept payment for coaching, tutoring, or instructing students who may or will be on his or her team during the current or following year. So
Yeah.
it's still not strong enough. I mean, I get where you're going with it, but I don't think it's accomplishing what you're doing, because the coach could still, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's,
Yeah, I mean, we were very intentional when we put the policy in place, saying, you know, you could do any other age group. You just cannot get paid or receive compensation for people who you would be directly responsible for that year. So, you know, again, I think we would encourage the men's basketball coach to work with players who are age 13, 14, 15, 16, you know, work with them, have them ready. You know, let them get money for that. I mean, he's coaching them, he can get paid for it on the weekends. It's just once he starts evaluating them, he can no longer receive payment. That was, so, no, anyway, I'm sorry. I'll leave.
Do I hear a motion to accept Mr. Davis's revised policy? Do I hear a motion to accept his policy revision? Hearing none, I guess the policy stays as is, Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I, as a board, can we, I don't know if we need a motion to do this, but I would be willing to ask Mr. Davis to go back and look at, I guess with Mr. Saunders, and look at a plan that would bulk up our off-season conditioning and whatever financial impacts we may need to cover the coach's extra time.
Yes, sir.
I mean, is that something we could ask him to prepare and present? I don't know if we need a motion for that, or could I just encourage him?
Mr.
Yes,
Davis.
so we are, Justin, Coach Saunders and myself, we're working on something to present to Dr. Huskin.
Okay,
And then, but yes, we are working
Okay.
on that, yeah.
thank you.
These coaches can be paid for that time, right?
Well,
Insinuating.
yes, gotcha.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Okay. Narcan policy, Mrs. Slaybach?
Good evening, Chairman, Dr. Husky, members of the board. So I am here tonight, kind of towards the end of the school year. Mr. Lewis, Dr. Husky, and I started looking at implementing a Narcan policy. We had looked at this several years ago, and it kind of didn't go anywhere. So for those that don't know, Narcan is a medication that would reverse an opioid overdose. And our policy essentially would state that we would keep 2 doses in each school, and we would have 3 people, the nurse and 2 administrators or whoever they designate, trained, and the training will be done annually to be administered. The training would include recognizing the signs and symptoms of an overdose, how to actually administer the medication, treatment while you're waiting for rescue to arrive, and action after the incident. And the training is at no cost through the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. We do have a couple of pathways for obtaining it. We can go through VDH and order. The state has a standing MOU that we can use with the school system if we do decide to adopt the policy. And we can order it through the Division of Pharmacy Services through the Health Department. Or we could choose to pay for it at a local pharmacy if we decided to go that route. Any questions?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Opiate-related drug overdose, is that, does that include fentanyl?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other? Ms. Potts?
No, I didn't hear the answer to the simple question.
Yes, it does cover fentanyl, yes, sir. Okay? Ms. Potts?
No, yeah, that's all I wanted.
Okay.
I didn't ask.
Okay.
Yeah. What about training? Did you give us training too? So
Yes.
training provided by the state, or by the local, or by what?
Training provided by the state or?
The Department of Health and Developmental Services.
The Department of Health and Developmental Services, Ms. Potts.
And it's at no cost. And they also offer a train the trainer training as well.
You broke up there on me. What was?
The person would be certified in order to give the Narcan, recognize the necessary symptoms that go along with an overdose.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question. So, what's the shelf life on Narcan? Is this something we would have to be remembering to replace every year, or like EpiPens, would we have to replace them every year?
Usually not every year, about 14 to 16 months.
Okay.
So a little over a year,
So this
typically.
it would kind of come under your purview, and you would just keep it on your list of reorder and make
Yes.
sure it stays current and all
That's something we already do with the EpiPens. We have albuterol
Okay.
stock, the AED pads for the AEDs. We already have a system in place
Okay,
to keep up with all of that.
okay. Yeah.
Michelle,
This is super important.
What's the cost for one of the doses?
So if we go through VDH, they have some no-cost programs. If we, for some reason, that was exhausted or they discontinued that, it's about $70 to $100 a dose. But hopefully, we would not have to go that route.
And it says file question mark. What policy would this be added to?
That I am not 100% sure where we would add it in the policy manual.
Okay, so maybe we can, if the board agrees, we approve the policy, and then you come back to us with whichever policy it's gonna be amended in?
Well, I think this is an additional policy is what I had discussed with Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, there's a place for it under the health and safety and all that, like
Right.
there's a nice place where it fits in, we just don't have the number right now to say where it's gonna go.
Ms.
Our
Evans? I'm sorry.
SROs and, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Evans.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm assuming this is preventative, but I'm just curious, have we had anything related to this in their school system where we've had to administer this and haven't had it available?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So this is completely just trying to be ahead of the curve?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept the policy as presented by Ms. Slaybaugh.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion?
What was the cost again each?
$70 to $100 per dose if they don't get it through the Virginia Department of Health. VDH is free.
Okay, and that's, how many units at the high, how many middle schools, elementary schools, how much?
You mean the number of doses?
2 doses at each school.
2 doses at each school,
Including elementary?
including,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay? Yes, sir.
thank you.
You're welcome. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Wood.
Yes.
District 3, Ms. Hicks.
Yes.
District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
District 6, Ms. Shotwell. Yes. District 7, Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Fox.
Mr. Potts?
Thank you, Ms. Slaybach, yes.
Yes.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. 2024-25 calendar, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening to our chair, vice chair, all other board members, and Dr. Huskin. This evening, I am presenting the proposed calendar for the 24-25 school year. It is very similar to the approved calendar in its structure. It includes a 3-day Thanksgiving break, first semester ending before Christmas, the school year ending in May, and Veterans Day. The start date would be of August 12, 2024, and it does not include any early release days. And so if you just want to look a little closer, again, new teachers will start on August 1st, 24, returning teachers on August 5th, and they would have 2 flex days. The students' first day would be August 12th, Veterans Day on November 11th, and the first semester would end on December 20th with 89 days, which would follow 10 days for break for our students. Teachers will return on January 2nd and 3rd of 2025 for work days, and the second semester would begin on January 6th. Spring break would be April 7th through 11th, and the students' last day would be May 22nd with a semester of 91 days. The teacher's last day would be May 23rd, and high school graduation would be on Saturday, May 24th, ending before Memorial Day.
That's fantastic.
I like it.
Thank you.
Can I ask 2 questions? October 21st and March 20th, do those count as days of school?
Yes, ma'am.
So theoretically, the kid could be at home and do an hour of work and it would count as school? Or is it going to be more structured than that?
We would plan for it to be more structured,
And how so?
working with our instructional team to have different activities that are standard that students could do with previously covered material.
Even for the elementary kids?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
It would they have to like check in on their computer, or would it be their babysitter or parent doing that?
They would not have to check in on the computer at that time. We could explore something like that, but the teachers would be engaged with conferences at that time.
Okay. My concern is, this is sort of what happened during virtual school, and it was completely on the parents. I mean, we got a packet, and literally 20 minutes of Zoom time, and then the rest was on the parents, so it was not a full day of school, you know, it was maybe an hour at best. So I have a hard time counting those as school days, and I don't know if that's our choice or if that's the state of Virginia that would do that, but I think it would be really hard to count that as learning time for the school year for 2 full days. Is that something we decide, or who's deciding that they count as, is there like a state mandate or something that you have to have so many hours of learning in that day, or how would that be decided?
Well, we would look at it, we would have to take a good look at the different activities, take into account even during the school day that students do have other times where they're not doing instruction straight for that 6 or 7 hours. So it'd be something equivalent to the learning activities that would take place during the day. But it may not be that they're doing the work nonstop from 8:30 to 3:15.
But you would send enough home for them to do?
We would, yes.
Okay. And will that be monitored?
It
How
will.
will it be monitored as far as, I'm just concerned because it wasn't monitored before.
We would have the expectations that teachers do review whatever activities that the students were given to complete during that time, just as we would if there were other projects or the activities that students are working on.
Okay, thanks. My last observation, I don't know if there's anything to do about this, is the first week of school is a full week, and I know that's hard for teachers, and it's also hard on elementary kids and special ed kids. It's a trade-off to have. It's a trade-off for the breaks.
Anybody else?
I have a question about the SOLs, Mr. Camp.
Yes, ma'am.
May of 2025, our last day is the 22nd, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're anticipating the completion of all the SOLs prior to the 22nd, like the 21st, so that we don't have 2 and 3 weeks where students are in limbo, you know, like we've had them in the past. I'm a believer that once the SOLs are over with, that children turn their minds off, and some teachers do as well, you know, because they're waiting for the end of the year to come. So that time, the 22nd, which is our for the last day for the students to come in May, everything will be done and completed. I mean, I know you have to check it out with the state and all that, but you know, I just don't want a week or 2 weeks to be there where teachers will have to either begin on the next year or do review, or you know, things that we would normally do at the end of the year if we have that 1 or 2 week period. So are you taking that into consideration with this calendar? I'm looking at both of you.
So we have to turn in a 3 to 4 week window for a test. So likely we would turn in, looking at this, first time I've seen it too, would be probably that last week in April to make the 4 weeks. You're going to do your whole group testing. So there are going to be some kids who are going to be done with testing in the first 2 weeks, because you have to allow time for students who qualify for expedite retakes to do remediation.
Correct.
And for absences. So the whole group will not be testing up to May 22nd.
Okay.
So that's no. But you have other things going on in schools, such as award days and fun days and things like that, that go into play too. But you know, as a whole, we won't still be testing, but there will be some, probably at the high school, seniors trying to pass to graduate, even up to the 22nd.
Yeah.
But the bulk of our kids will be done before the 22nd.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Shotwell.
Mr. Miller, I want to thank you. Really, you've done a good job, I think. No half days. That's a blessing.
Thank you. Your feedback was very valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of cleanup items. It would probably be helpful to have the 22nd, May 22nd highlighted, so it's clear that that's the last day of school. And then in the key down at the bottom, something for asynchronous learning, so that parents know that this is actually a school day, it's just a virtual learning day. If there's some other way to do that, rather than a half day and a virtual day, that would be good, because I have the same concerns as Ms. Hicks. They're not gonna attend, and teachers are gonna be busy with the conferences, so I really don't think those are gonna be very good days. And then I guess my question would be, when we talked about it previously, we were asking to see what options there were to push out the start date to not be the 12th, to be later in the week, that Wednesday or Thursday or start of the next week. Were you able to do any investigations on that?
Yes, any shift to the start date would just continue to shift the end of the school year. So, and then it could potentially, if we were still having the goal to end the school semester before Christmas, it would continue to shorten the semester. And this one had somewhat of a balanced semester.
I guess my last comment, I'm not a fan of starting on a Monday, and the 12th is pretty early. I know a lot of times kids go to the first day of school and they don't even know what supplies they need. Even if you go to open house, you go to school the first day and you find out all these other things that you need. If you have it starting on a Wednesday or Thursday, it gives you that time to be in the classes, find out what you need, and the parents have the weekend to get the additional supplies. And a full week starting back after the summer is going to be tough on students and teachers. I would have preferred to see a start date later in the week.
Ms. Miller, I have to respectfully disagree with Ms. Shotwell. I think beginning on as we have it is the way to go, because teachers are gearing up for a full week of lesson planning and getting students engaged in learning. I know it's been 6 years since I've been out of the classroom, but I looked forward to starting class. Children do too. They're geared up. They're ready. They want to start. So I'm in favor of this calendar. So.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, I think you've done a fantastic job. It's close to being perfect. Can't have your cake and ice cream too. So I think you did a fantastic job, and the ones who helped you with this calendar, I think they did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, I just have one more thing to say. In listening to Mrs. Hicks about those days where students are at home, can you sort of give us a tentative idea as to when teachers would let the parents know when work would be coming, what kind of work, how long the work would be when you guys get ready to do your instructional stuff? Would you let the parents know that, you know, this is what's coming home and this is what your child needs to be doing, and, you know, let the parents know what's happening with that?
We will.
Okay.
Ms. Lloyd.
I don't know about that.
Ms. Miller, I don't think my comments are going to be very shocking. You probably could have predicted my comments beforehand. I've said this many, many times over the years. I am very much opposed to starting as early as the 12th. I could see a compromise of the 15th or even the 20th. Either of those two compromises would still get you out during the month of May, so you would not go into June. It would make you closer to a 85-95 split, but as I've always said, the majority of inclement weather comes in the second semester. So if you're typically going to miss days, you're going to miss it in that second semester as opposed to the first. So even with that, you probably likely end up with a more even split than you would if you design it 90-90. So, yeah, I mean, I've always said that I would not support any calendar that would begin before the 15th of August, and that's not based on my own personal preference. It's based on all of the feedback I've heard from parents over the years who, you know, again, I think sometimes their input is missed. We don't always take into consideration the input of parents. So, you know, again, I would, you know, if you're looking at, if you start on the 15th, you're only looking at 3 days. I mean, it's easily accomplished by sliding those into the second semester. But again, my preference would be the 20th, but at the very minimum, I would ask that the board consider the 15th. Again, it gives you a midweek start. It gives you, to me, it's more of a compromise for those who want a late start date versus those who want an early start date. It's, you know, it's middle of the month. So, again, that's my only comments.
Anybody else? Do I hear a motion to accept this calendar? Do I hear a motion to accept this calendar?
I make a motion to put it down.
I
Is there a
second it.
Motion and
A
a
second.
second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please, ma'am.
District 1, Ms. Franklin.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
No.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks.
No.
District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
District 6, Ms. Shotwell. No. District 7, Mr. Dell.
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 to 3.
We've got a 23-24 question from,
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the fact that what happened this year with, there was a lot of factors I know, but one of the factors is some people wanted to end early because we were coming back just for 2 days at the end of the year, a Monday and a Tuesday. And that exact same scenario is happening for the 23-24, if I'm not mistaken, on Memorial Day is the 27th. So we would come back for a full day on the 28th and a half day on the 29th. So summer break, Memorial Day, woohoo, and then a day and a half left of school. And I'm not gonna make a motion, I just wanted to point that out because I don't want to have what happened this current year to be sort of what happens next year. So my observation was it was a lot of chaos, a lot of teachers scrambling, readjusting field days, saying they didn't have time for field days, SOLs, scores. There were just a lot of last minute adjustments. So if we can avoid that, just, we all know that there's a day and a half at the end of the school year next year. So we don't need to address it then because we all know now.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you all.
Delegate and alternate to VSBA Annual Convention. Is that the convention in Williamsburg?
Yeah, you were the
Yes, so I was the delegate last year. Basically, all of the different school boards around the state submit their changes for requested policy changes to the VSBA. So VSBA has their own policy book. Each board can review and say, we want to submit this policy for adjustment. This assembly is where a delegate and/or a second delegate, sub, alternate, that's it, attend and actually vote for their school board and their positions on those policies. It was pretty eye-opening for me, very educational as well to see how that many people got together and managed a school board meeting effectively, efficiently, fairly. They did time everyone. You had 3 minutes. You got to speak once on each topic. And you couldn't speak a second time until everyone else had had a chance, and then you could speak a second time, and that's it. Very, very educational from that standpoint. But we did it virtually last year. It was on the phone. It looks like this one is actually going to be in Williamsburg.
When is this? When is?
August 18th.
August 18th.
Oh, wait, that's when it's due back by.
Is it in, when did we go last year, November?
November 16th.
Any volunteers?
Lacey wants to go again.
Lacey, you want to go as a delegate?
Only if you're okay with getting a 4-page email with the summary of the discussion like last year.
Okay. Okay. Alternate? It's November the 16th in Williamsburg. Is that what it is? Ms. Shotwell?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll be looking for your luggage.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll gladly make a motion that we accept Ms. Shotwell as the delegate to the
Second?
annual convention.
I don't think we need much discussion on that. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We need an alternate. Alternate, anybody else want to be an alternate?
In the absence of an alternate, Ms. Shotwell's obligated.
That's right. She must go.
Do you want to do an alternate?
Does anyone want to sign up as the alternate?
I mean, are we going to be down there for
Yeah,
the, that's
if
the
you-
annual meeting anyway, right?
Right, whoever, I mean, a bunch of us are signed up. If you can't go, somebody.
Well, I'll be an alternate.
All
I
right,
mean, I'm going to
Jay,
be there anyway, I think.
Jay will be the alternate.
Yeah, I'll be the alternate. All right.
Move that JB signed as the alternate.
Second by Keith. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Appropriation request for, is that SNAP? Isn't,
School nutrition.
School
I
nutrition.
apologize for that. So, I'm not sure if you're aware, school nutrition is the only fund that we carry that can actually make a profit. So in reviewing their annual revenues, there was an increase this year in their a la carte and adult meals, and there were more reimbursements, which brought our revenues up above the 3 million mark. So we need to reallocate and appropriate $581,761.81 for those increased revenues. And this is, sorry?
You said $581, $581,000.
Sorry, $581,761.81 to the revenue line. And this is for the 22-23 budget, but this is a procedural step that should be done, just to reflect the increased revenues.
I move we approve the request.
is there a second? Second by Mr. Potts. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lloyd.
Okay. Yeah, pursuant to section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of considering the following specific matters: personnel, the appointment, resignation, and salaries of specific division employees as authorized by section 2.23711.A1 of the Code of Virginia, and disciplining specific students of the Code Division as authorized by section 2.23711A2 of the Code of Virginia, protection of the privacy of individuals and personal matters not related to public business as authorized by section 2.23711A4 of the Code of Virginia, and contracts where the discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including the interviews of bidders and offers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, is authorized by section 2.23711A29 of the Code of Virginia.
Need a second, please? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. 10 minutes, we've got closed session.